Hey lovelies, you're welcome to Reviews and Recaps. Let's get into part 3 of the Love and Marriage Huntsville reunion. So they do a playback of when Destiny and Kimmy were getting into it, and Kimmy was like it's comical to her and that everyone has scenes that gets cut off all the time. Now, I understand and appreciate that, and you guys might think like I'm rooting for Destiny. I'm just rooting on the side of truth. Even if it happens to everyone, let Destiny speak. Let her say her truth, and then you can say what you have to say. There's no need for you to interrupt her while she's saying her truth. It just is not a nice thing to do. And so then Kimmy was like, sometimes production will be telling her, try to talk about this, and then she'll be like, don't you see me trying? And I can completely understand that. If you guys watched my video talking about the interview that Destiny had with Anthony, you will completely understand what Kimmy is saying. So then Carlos was like, if there's a new season, are we going to get to meet the guy you're dating? And she's like, yeah, so why isn't he here now? And she's like, due to unforeseen circumstances. You know what's funny? I think it's a lie because she was even stuttering when she was saying unforeseen circumstances. But okay. And then finally, Carlos was like, okay, so as the cast met him? And she was like, yes. And then Tisha was like on FaceTime. And then Carlos was like in person. I'm like, ooh. So then she's like Courtney, Stormy's husband, and Tiffany and Lou. I'm like, interesting. So the people that you supposedly don't talk to as much have met him, but Tisha has not actually met him, considering that's your BFF. Okay. So then Carlos is like, the fans of the show are just very invested, and so they want to see more of your life. And then she's like, yeah, come on, open book. I'm like, girl, where? You're more like a closed book, but if you say it, maybe you will start to believe it. And then she's like, as much as I can. I'm like, you see? Did you see the look Kimmy gave her when she said as much as I can? That's the thing. It's like, there was no need for you to say as much as I can. Like, sis, you do not understand the assignment. You need to stop. So then they moved over to the relationship that Melody and Destiny has had and how the relationship had deteriorated. So Carlos was basically asking Melody, like, how did it get to that point? So Melody was like, she did an interview one time when she was like talking about the scene where she came over to visit her after her divorce was finalized. And she was sort of saying like, Melody was just there for just 5 minutes. And then she starts talking about the boundary issue and how like as a person, she will always make the decision that is right for herself, for her peace. And that is what she did. I'm like, I know that, right? So then Carlos was like asking Destiny like what Destiny thought about that. She's like, it sounds good. And then she proceeds to say that she feels like everything deteriorated when they were in LA, I think for the reunion, and that Melody heard the conversation that Destiny was having with Tisha. And then Destiny was like, oh, I'm still waiting for her to tell me what we discussed. And Melody was like, we already discussed that. And so Destiny was like, I'm not going to let someone play in my face. She's like, I don't even talk to you, sweetie. I'm like, oh. So then Tisha interrupts and she's like, somebody needed a storyline. And then Carlos started questioning on that. And then she's like, what she talks about with Destiny was that Melody needed a friend. I'm like, you, Tisha. Okay, I don't believe that either, but okay, sis. Then she proceeds to say Melody has a dark soul. I'm like, honey, what do you know about souls? Or do you have a dark soul too? Is that how you can recognize that she does? So then she's like, she's the definition of devil in sheep's clothing. And then it was interesting that everyone else looked uncomfortable that she said that. And then she's like, Melody was like, well, you should be grateful I'm no longer in your life. I'm like, yeah. Like, why would you want to be in the same scene with the devil in sheep's clothing, kicking and smiling and laughing in her face? You are hella fake. And I love how Melody handled it. Melody was like, well, if I have such a dark soul, then, you should be grateful every day that the dark soul is no longer in your life. You should thank God every day for that. And you should keep my name out of your mouth. And I'm like, yeah, yes, and yes, completely agree. if you say someone has a dark soul, you should not want to have any interactions with them. You should not constantly bring them up. Oh, where's Melody? Like, no, sis, shut up, mind your business, and focus on your so-called clean soul, honey. So then Carlos asked Destiny, so do you think she has a dark soul? And then Destiny was like, well, she does some things that are dark. Like, for example, when she said that she gave me $6,000 to pay my light bill. I'm like, Destiny, you were dogging this woman out, saying she's not a friend. She's never been a friend to you. And she said that if I've not been a friend to you, would I give you some money? Like, I don't understand why she cannot bring that up if you are dogging her out and talking about her like a dog. So then Destiny is like, she didn't like the way it was made to seem like, Destiny was a charity case. Destiny needed money, so Mel helped her out. Okay. If there was a notice on your door, you needed money. Like, that's just the reality. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or petty, but I feel like instead of her to be grateful for someone that has helped her, even when they showed the clip where where Melody was talking about giving her money, she wasn't being rude. She was just expressing something that has happened. Like, why is everyone just so against her when all she has done is help them? It's almost like they feel insecure in their inadequacies that they would rather put it on Melody. So then Destiny is like, it's the same way you stopped my business from going through. And Melody was like, I didn't stop your business. Like, and then Destiny is like, well, if you call someone a liar and a snake, who would want to do business with them? I'm like, well, develop your business to a point where people want to do business irrespective of other people, what other people say about you. If you had a decent personality, great business ethic, I'm sure people would be able to see through whatever anyone else says about you and be like, okay, let's do business. She's on her grind. But what we can see is you're very childish, you're immature, you're defensive. You always have an attitude almost 90% of the time. Who will want to do business with you? It's just a question. Let me know in the comment section below if you think I'm bugging. So Carlos then asked Melody, did you feel like Destiny was too chimey with Mattel? And then Mattel looked shocked, like, why am I being brought up? I'm like, why not? And so Melody starts talking about, when she's been married to Mattel for such a long time and did not know that Destiny was supposedly meant to be close friends with Mattel. And then when she's on the phone to Destiny telling her about how Mattel is causing her all these headaches and that they would be connecting on the fact that their exes are similar. And then Destiny on the other side is like, oh, where is this going? I'm like, girl, you sound uncomfortable. Is that something you don't want to be exposed? So Mel was like, well, she was just calling him like 1 or 5 a.m. in the morning. So, and Destiny was like, is it when you hacked his phone? I'm like, sis, sounds like you get everything you say against Melody from Mattel. That's what I think. So then Melody was like, why would she hack his phone? Like, she's just not going to do that. And then, but her phone was attempted to be hacked. And then Carlos was like, you think Mattel hacked your phone? I'm like, and then Melody was like, yeah. And she's like, that's why I changed my number the other week. And like 5 people have the number. I'm like, good. Like the way Mattel acts, I am not surprised. I feel that, yes, most definitely, she needs to be on top of her phone. Because Mattel, allegedly, may hack, may do all sorts of things, honey. So she better be careful with that. So then Carlos is trying to get to the bottom of it. And Mel was like, when someone tries to call Mattel, basically they would call her number and it would trying to speak to Mattel. So it was almost like the hack was wrongly done. And then Mel was like, it sounds like somebody allegedly did the wrong hack or something like that. And then she was like, with your ugly shoes too. And then, oh my God, the cameraman like now zoomed into the shoes. I'm like, oh, don't even start with me. That was so funny, guys. The cast actually laughed. I'm like, yeah, because those shoes, it is well, man. So now they're going back and forth. And then Destiny is like, if she has to cut Mattel off, then she would have to cut her off for the same thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? But anyways, they didn't really get into that. So Mel is like, sometimes I'll be talking to you on the phone and you're like, oh, wait, Mattel is calling, let me call you back. And then Destiny will now also say to Melody that Mattel is calling to talk smack about Mel. And I know it's true because if we look at all their interactions, it is either Destiny going to Mattel with some mess or Mattel coming to Destiny with some mess about Melody. That is it. So that is really what they connect on. They both do not like Melody and they just want to bash her. So then Carlos starts asking Stormy about whether she's pretty much experienced something like that. Stormy was like, her and the rest of the cast have been tight, and so basically insinuating that her and Melody haven't had issues, because they're not really tight like that. And then I was just looking at Melody's face and Melody was just like, I'm not sure Melody's feeling that answer that Stormy gave. So Mattel tells Stormy, like, retreat now. I'm like, you see, you're the one that keeps trying to ruin her image. And then Mel is like, well, and then Mattel is like, you're such a liar. And then she's like, no, that's you. But I love the projection. I'm like, yes, honey, yes. I'm here for the classy reads that Melody's given this episode, to be honest. And then Destiny is there in the background saying, oh yeah, actually he's bad at lying. But that doesn't change the fact that he's a liar. That doesn't change the fact that he lies. Like, what is your point, Destiny? This is what I mean. You're too chimey with Mattel. You're too involved in their business. It's like, do you like Mattel or something, honey? Like, speak up now, because I don't understand. So Mattel is over there talking about, yeah, he forgives people, all of that. And Mel was like, to be honest, who continues to get around people who bash him for not having a builder's license, who basically dog him out every chance they get, so that he can be able to say, for this moment, oh, I get along with everybody. And Melody, I think, again, she called it. She is right. Because let's be honest, the Scots have dogged Mattel out constantly, including Destiny, making jokes about Mel being the brain of the marriage, of the business, right? And so imagine all your friends have practically dogged you out, but you're still tight, chimey with them, but you can't be nice enough to your ex-wife. That is a problem. So Mattel starts going on about if Melody forgives someone, that's because she wants something from that person. And Melody was like, no, God is my source. And, if not, I wouldn't have left your dusty ass. I'm like, oh, Melody. She is coming with the reads and I'm here for it. He went quiet and Stormy's face was like, oop. So Carlos moved on from the conversation and started asking Melody and Mattel, like, what happened for them to be in this place where they can't really, like, co-parent together. So Mattel starts speaking his speech, talking about, well, the idea of co-parenting is so different, for all of us. And, the idea of a village, I don't want a man watching my children. I'm like, okay. And then Carlos was like, even if the man is her brother. And then he's like, well, Melody only met her brother when she was a teenager. I'm like, so from a teenager to a 30-something-year-old, that's not long enough to know somebody? Okay, Mattel, if you say so. So then he's like, I don't want a man watching my children and I don't want 20-something people watching my children. First of all, Mattel, your favorite number is 20-something. Because when you were talking about girls and who Meso and Marie said allegedly had things with you, like, not like you guys haven't had like 20-something women. What is your issue with 20-something, honey? What is it? Tell me, brother. What is it? So then Carlos moves over to Melody and is like, why is it difficult to co-parent, with Mattel, basically. And then she's like, because of the person I'm being asked to co-parent with. And I couldn't agree more. Mattel is a narcissist, allegedly, I think. He has, even if he's not, he has so many narcissistic traits. So it is difficult to co-parent with someone like that. They love control. Anytime they can't exert the control, they act out. You can see how Mattel is acting on this reunion. Once he realized that Melody wasn't here for his shenanigans, then he's acting a fool. So Melody starts saying that, she has tried the positive co-parenting thing, But basically dealing with Mattel is difficult. So she's like, the whole 20-something people that he's talking about is her mom and her aunt. And the fact that the children have stayed over with her brother once, I think it was for 2 nights in her own home. And I'm like, Mattel, what is your problem? And so then Carlos asked Mattel if it was fair to ask for full custody. And he's like, well, if she doesn't have time to take care of the children, then, I'll have the children. And like, if she's free, then she can see the children. I'm like, you want control. You want it to be that she can only see the children on your own terms. And that would never happen. I pray for this woman because she is in serious trouble. If you, Mattel, I'm speaking directly to you, if you end up having custody of those children, you will rub it in her face. You will use it to control her. You will not let her see the children. Like, honestly, God, I pray that this never happens because I would never want to be on the receiving end of Mattel's control. So Carlos basically showed the clips of the destined trip, and then look at Martel's face looking emotional. I'm like, hon, you just cursed this woman out. Like, I don't understand this man. So then Carlos was like, so what goes through your mind when you watch that? And he's like, oh, this is something that I genuinely miss. And then Carlos was like, which is what? I'm like, good, hold him to the fire, let him answer the question. He likes to avoid saying certain things. Say it. So Tisha tried to give Mattel, I think, a handkerchief or a tissue or something like that. Mattel was like, no, I don't need it, or something like that. And then Carlos was like, I feel like you're afraid to show, your emotions and basically show how you miss your family and how hurt you are about the demise of the relationship. Then Carlos started crying. And did you see Kim's face when Carlos started crying? I was like, oops. And then he's like, at some point you had such a great heart. And I feel like now you feel like you have to put up this facade. And whilst he was saying that, Melody was also crying. Kimmy handed her a tissue. So he basically says like, he thinks Mattel is sad. Mattel is angry. And that when he has this outburst of anger, he basically does that because he's so afraid of being vulnerable. And I completely agree with Carlos 100%. I think that all the outburst of anger, part of it is because he feels like, he can't be vulnerable, but also part of it is a control thing as well, because he knows that his anger will get to his wife. Oh, sorry, ex-wife, guys, sorry. So basically, Mattel started talking about how, yes, he does miss the relationship, and they had each other's back, which is completely true. You could see from season 1, they've always been like gang. And so Carlos started asking Melody on the other side, what makes you get emotional? She's like, the divorce, the marriage, the demise of everything. And, we have children, of course, our children as well, which I completely get as well. And then she's like, she never would have thought that she would have children with a man that she would end up not liking. Oh, that was like a... what I felt that, like when she said that, I felt that. To be honest, this episode has been emotional, guys. So then Carlos starts talking, and this is where I'm like, what are you talking about? So he's like, some women rise to stardom and, some of their men feel some type of way. And then this is why, like, women, I always say you have to, like, hold your man down even as you rise. I'm like, so you're almost making it seem like it's her fault for the demise of the relationship? Bro, that's a problem. Even if I'm not, in quotation marks, holding you down as you would like, that is a conversation. That is, we go to counseling. That is, we work on fixing it. That is not you having a side chick for like 5 years of the marriage and then having a baby with her. Like, Carlos, I don't understand what you're talking about. It's nonsense. And so she's like, well, I agree that happens in some cases, but that wasn't the case in this case. I still cooked. I still did a lot of things. And she's like, we obviously were not having sex because, I pretty much stayed pregnant. And that's true because she has 4 kids. So they must have been doing something. And she's like, no goals, no aspirations had ever stopped us all hanging out together, going to Destin 2-3 times a year, spending time together, spending time with our friends when we were all kicking it. You know what I mean? So she's making it clear that, I still made time for us. It wasn't like I did not make time for us and my career skyrocketed whilst my relationship went downhill. And so he's like, okay, being that, like, is there anything like you would do differently in your marriage? And then she's like, you know what, maybe listen a little bit more. Like, I listened, but maybe listened a little bit more. But she's like, whatever I would have done would have never been enough. And I'm not a robot. And I completely can understand where she's coming from. When you're in a relationship with someone who strays, right? You could do everything and they will still stray and they will still blame you. They will find a reason to not be satisfied. And that's the thing here. It is obvious that Mattel strays because even his side chick, Ariane, said that he was dealing with other people as well, allegedly. So clearly he strays. It is not my wife did not satisfy me. There is something within me that I need to work on that is making me want to go out there and just do every and anyone, allegedly. So Carlos was like, I hope like you guys can get to a comfortable space like where you guys were in Destin and stuff like that. And I hear that completely. Well, hopefully they get to that point, but it would have to be Mattel doing a lot of work on himself because he is not there yet. He really isn't. And with someone like him, co-parenting is not going to work until he does something about himself. Because you're saying 20 people are watching your children, but on the other hand, your mom allegedly watches the children as well. That's one person, right? But you're always over at your mom's. So who's watching the kids? Who allegedly? Who has time to do all of those things, right? So I'm just like, that's the issue, right? It's like you have issues with her brother watching the kids once for 2 nights since Melody has had those children. And you have issues with her mom and her aunt watching the kids. Like, what is your problem, sir? It is just a control issue. And it makes me so sad, especially when people have children with certain people, that it just causes difficulty in terms of co-parenting and moving forward in life. It just makes life that much harder. So I don't even wish it on my worst enemy. You don't need to like Melody, but it is wickedness to want anyone to be in that situation. Anyways, moving over from that, Tiffany and Louis came on and joined the cast. I'm kind of curious as to why they weren't sitting on the couch the whole time and why they were brought in a little bit late. Are they extras? I thought they were also like full-on couples. I'm like, if Destiny, who barely had any sort of storyline, was sitting on the couch for a long time, why wasn't Lou and Tiffany seated on the couch as well? So Carlos asked them, how do they feel about the couple's trip? And Tiffany was like, I invited Louis to support Tisha and Marceau, but then she felt set up. I'm like, okay, sis. So Tiffany was basically talking about how, like, by the time they got to the couple's trip or couple's retreat, whatever they wanted to call it, and that when she got there, basically communicating, like, Dr. Francis did not know anything about them, did not ask any questions, but just had an issue with the fact that they had already agreed to prioritize work and that she had a call coming up. So Carlos was like, did you contribute to that? And Tiffany was like, I communicated early before we even started playing games that I had a meeting. Before I think Tisha and Marceau were even present. And I'm like, interesting. So then the question was like, so how does it feel to be diagnosed as fake? And then Marceau was like, professionally. And then Louis was like, well, we weren't diagnosed as fake. We're diagnosed as thinking our relationship was a game and playing a game, basically. And I'm like, okay, Lou, you better correct him. And then he told Marceau, can we come up with some better jokes? I'm like, oop, check him. And they're like, they've been here for a year. They've been consistent throughout. And so, yeah, that's what that is. So they start talking about the sexual frustrations. And Lou is like, well, we're not talking a couple of months. We're talking a couple of weeks, We're still, taking care of business. But, sometimes, we didn't really get a chance to do it. And so you're like, so where are we now in terms of the sexual frustration? He's like, well, we got that handled and we're expecting. So, everyone is clapping, excited for them. And so she's like, oh, it's a boy. His name is Ace. Oh, I like Ace as a name. So then Carlos was like, are you going to make time for your man and your baby child? And then Tiffany is like, yeah, I'll make time for my man and my baby child. I'm like, okay, all right, Tiffany. Tiffany is spicy. I actually want to see more of this energy on the show, if I'm being honest. Like, the energy she brought to the reunion, I'm gonna need that energy on the scenes, honey. I don't know if they don't show it, but I need them to show it, okay? And what was interesting was Tisha was like, oh, are you going to be a stay-at-home mom, Tiffany? Tiffany looks like, girl, don't you ever. I ain't never going to be a stay-at-home mom, man. Yeah, she's not. She's not doing it. I honestly feel like the baby announcement lightened up everything, like the mood of the cast. And I think it was like perfectly scheduled as well. So yeah, I'm completely here for it because the first half of the episode was very heavy. So it was nice to bring in a baby announcement. I'm excited for them. I know we don't see enough of them, and I know most people don't really like them, and I cannot say that I'm a fan. I cannot say that, but I want to see what happens when they do have a baby. I would love Love and Marriage Huntsville to cover that and see how their dynamics are, like the relationship, how Tiffany balances work. I feel like she is a hardworking, really wants to work kind of girl. So I think they need to cover more of her work and also how she's balancing her home life. So if you're a producer, write that down. So things got a little bit more serious when Carlos started asking about Kimmy and her journey. And Kimmy was like, I might not look like I'm good, but I'm good, after dealing with the fact that, she got breast cancer and she's 1 in 8, and she's like, why her? And that's the thing. That's a very common question, especially when you're going through stuff. It's like, why you, It's such a very sad situation. But then she was like, her marriage and also the fact that she's on a show has pretty much helped her to get up and not be at home all the time, which I'm like, that is helpful for her mental health and her mindset. And she started talking about how she still has different treatments. She needs to still do surgery. Then she needs to do radiation. It was so... Honestly, guys, it's so sad. Like, I just wish her strength. And, I just pray that she really gets well. It was just so sad. And then Carlos started talking about how his mom died of breast cancer and, she didn't really go for checks and stuff like that. And he knows that majority of the people who watch the show are Black women. And that he basically had a dream where his mom was saying to him that, he should show that on the show and the bravery and, all that Kimmy is going through so that it can help other people as well. That was such an emotional moment. It brought all the cast together. The cast were crying. Yeah, such an emotional moment. So Carlos ended the reunion by giving everyone their props for how hard they've worked and, how they've been growing and how they should continue to grow. I'm like, okay, thank you for that. And then he's like, the millimeters, leave me alone. That cracks me up. Complete side points. I noticed that Tiffany did not cry at all. Bless her. I would have thought she would have been so emotional, considering she's pregnant and all, but yeah, maybe completely different. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please make sure you share and leave your comments in the comment section below. What did you think about this episode? Let me know below. Let's talk about it.